going on, YouTube? RDAP Dan here, Federal Prison Time Consulting. Happy beginning of the new year to everybody. Hope you guys are all enjoying your new year. Let's go ahead and mute that. That's our separate screen here, so we got some other things going on here in the background. So how's everybody doing today? You guys let me know. You guys can hear the audio stream and the videos coming in correct and all that good stuff, because we're using some new software. But as you can see, we're talking a little bit about self-surrender today, getting designated, choosing a prison of your choice, as many of you have probably seen on the news, such as Loughlin was able to choose her prison, and the judge granted her that prison. So we're going to talk about that today, because that seems to be something of interest to everybody. What's going on, Sean? Welcome, my man. How are you doing today? I'm trying to get these screens here so I can see them better. There we go. So we got Sean in the room. Sean, how's the stream coming through? Coming through pretty clear. Audio matching up. Give everybody a few minutes to join us. Soda water, just in case you're wondering. Soda water. You know, there's been a lot of talk about Loughlin and picking her prison, to the point where we've had celebrities outbursting about this, from LeBron James and Wendy Williams have been talking about it. It's been all over. Different media stations have talked about it, how unfair it is. What's going on, Juan Carlos? I said there's a bit of an echo. I don't know how bad the echo is, guys, but let me know. Hopefully the mic should be picking up. I apologize if there's an echo. We're going to have to deal with it today. So, first off, for those of you that haven't been to this channel before, my name is Dan Wise. I have a YouTube channel, RDAP Dan, which stands for the Residential Drug Addiction Program. I myself was sentenced to 42 months federal prison. I self-surrendered September 23rd, 2014. And I qualified for the RDAP program, which those of you, if you've done any research at all, you know that RDAP can reduce your sentence from anywhere from 6 months up to 12 months based on the amount of time that you're sentenced to. Well, I was able to receive the maximum 12 months off my sentence, in addition to my good time, and I was also given 11 months federal halfway house, which means I ended up only serving 13 months in federal prison out of a 42-month federal prison sentence, which is pretty good when you consider, you know, the alternative of typically on a 42-month sentence, you're probably going to spend 2.5 to 3 years. I started my YouTube channel before I went to prison, just kind of talking about my experience, getting ready to go in. Adjust my sound. Sorry, guys. What's going on, Sean? Sound is really bad. Well, that's not good. How's that, guys? Any better? It's always something. Sound is really bad. Wish I could hear what you guys are hearing. Testing. Oh, wait a minute. If we pause. How about now? Any better? Testing the sound. Testing the sound. Give me some feedback, guys. I think there's a little bit of a delay here. Live streaming. Still hearing that there's echo. Juan Carlos said it's definitely an audio setting. Better. Okay, I think we fixed it. I think I figured out what it was here, guys. So hopefully that was... All right, cool. I had audio on in 2 spots. Oops, my bad. I'm using all this new high-tech shit here that a buddy of mine got me hooked up on. So I've got soundboards and everything else down here that you guys can't see. So anyway, cut to the chase. I was able to serve a rather short sentence on a lengthy sentence, 42 months. I didn't, a lot of people think, oh, well, what did you have to do? Go tell on people while you're inside? And no, once I got into prison, there was no telling on anybody. It was purely because of RDAP and 11 months of federal halfway house, which has cut my time down. Now, we're going to jump into the topic today, guys. We got 13 of you in the room right now. So the topic today is prison designation and what that looks like and how do people get to pick their prison. Did Lori Loughlin really actually get to pick her prison? It's pretty frustrating when you hear this because she really didn't get to pick her prison. And that's why it's when you hear these celebrities that make these asinine statements like, we'll go with LeBron James. And look, right now we know that privilege is a big topic in society in general. The problem is there's a lot of misguidance on this. So you've got LeBron James twittering about Lori Loughlin and how it's basically unfair that she gets to pick her own prison. She never got to pick her prison. Anybody that's ever been, and you would think these celebrities have run through the muck by media, running over them, making up stories, stuff that was never really true, all for the point of getting views and getting watchers and creating monetization off of the highlighted statements that they're making. The only thing that Lori Loughlin did was her attorney requested that the judge make a recommendation of a prison, which almost anybody that's getting ready to go to federal prison is going to do. Anybody that's going for a nonviolent crime, anybody that's out on pre-trial, whether you're rich, poor, celebrity, low-end drug dealer, any one of you is going to ask for a preferred prison. And by preferred prison, it's based on your custody. It's based on where you live. It's based on what type of crime you committed, how much time you're sentenced to. These are what determines where you're going to go. Lori Loughlin did not get to pick her prison. The judge did not grant her to choose her prison. As a matter of fact, we've got right, and this was just some information. I don't know if you guys can actually see this or not. I might need to zoom in a little on there. But these were just tweets that LeBron James said. LeBron James reacted to the news that actress Lori Loughlin will get to choose her prison. She serves time in amid the high-profile college admission scandal, blah, blah, blah. He basically just goes on to say it's white privilege at its best. He said the Lakers star took on Instagram September 18th explaining that it made no sense to him of her. He said Lori getting to select the prison of her choice. So let's go to Lori's judgment. Here's the judgment. This is actually from the court. Imprisonment. The defendant is hereby committed to the custody of federal prison to be imprisoned for a total of 2 months. The court makes the following recommendation. A recommendation is a big difference from telling where you're going to get to go. The defendant is designated that the defendant be designated to a facility closest to her home in California, preferably camp at FCI Victorville. Now, the BOP already has an obligation to do its best to send defendants within a 500-mile radius of the release address. So the BOP is already trying to send people as close as they can to home. Now, there are factors. Maybe there's not proper programs. Maybe your custody level. Maybe you have co-defendants that you have separatees with where you're not allowed to talk to these co-defendants. Maybe you guys are testifying against each other. So you can't be at the same prison. So if your co-defendant already arrived at the prison or was sentenced before you and was already designated to a prison that you want to go to, then yes, you're not going to be able to go to that prison. You can end up going hundreds and hundreds of miles away. We've all heard the horror stories of what it's like and how individuals get sentenced far away from home. But Lori Loughlin and who she is had no significance to the prison that she was designated to. So when you see these people like LeBron James jumping to Twitter, making a statement because of some bullshit he read in the media, yeah, again, this is somebody who's, building $100 million house, who's all of a sudden concerned about how Lori Loughlin was sentenced. We've seen Wendy Williams was on endless TV shows and her own TV show talking about how unfair it is that Lori Loughlin gets to pick her prison and how there's this whole deal with, everybody's probably heard of Tanya McDowell now, which Tanya McDowell is a woman who was sentenced to 5 years because she, I believe, lied about the address of where they lived in order to get her child into another school. So they were comparing this to Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin and basically, white privilege. and how they got sentenced, the sentencing disparities. First off, Tanya McDowell's was a complete state case, had nothing to do with the feds. Secondly, if you go do a little research on Tanya McDowell here, and we look up, let's see if I have that information here. All right. So if you read the actual case behind this, and again, I don't know if you can see what I'm seeing here. I know you can see it, but I don't know how big it is. Oops. All right. Let's make that a little bit bigger. Gosh, dang it. All these pop-ups, they want to get you any way they can. All right. So Tanya McDowell, we're not comparing apples to apples here, guys. The case of Felicity Huffman, in which she just served 11 days, a federal crime. The critics pointed at a case in Bridgeport, Connecticut, where a mother was sentenced to 5 years in prison for crimes that included falsifying her son's residence to get him to a neighboring school district. However, the plea deal in the Connecticut case also includes selling drugs on 2 occasions. According to the Assistant State Attorney, Michael DeJoseph, article by People magazine, Tanya McDowell was sentenced after she pled guilty to charges including first-degree larceny and 2 counts of selling narcotics. For the narcotics charge, McDowell was twice caught selling drugs to what turned out to be an undercover officer. The larceny charge was added when it was found that McDowell used her son's babysitter's address to enroll him in elementary school that was located in Norwalk, neighboring school. It also talks about how she had priors, bank robbery. I mean, this woman had a track record. She had a criminal history. It's not the same thing. So this is the problem when you're trying to use this in a very, very hot temperature time that we're in right now, where everybody is freaking out. We've got the elections going ape shit. We've got, black people versus white people and what's fair and what's not fair. And then you got stuff like this that is being used out of context in order to further a narrative. It creates more backlash down the road because the media is so certain that we are not going to do our research. So when you've got a media out there that knows that you're not going to do your research and it just assumes that you're going to believe every fucking thing that you hear, it creates this disparity in fair versus unfairness. The reality is, if you're going through something right now, if you're either under federal indictment or under federal investigation, and you're concerned about potential locations. Now, granted, we have made it very clear. I think that we've made it very clear that you cannot pick your prison. There is no amount of celebrity push or pull that is going to get you into the prison that you want to go to. It's purely going to be up to, here, let me turn all of this garbage off here for a minute. It is going to be up to the BOP. Once you're sentenced in federal court, your paperwork then is going to go do central processing, whether it's going to be like Grand Prairie, Texas, where they're going to do your designating, your sentencing computation. They're going to look at your age. They're going to look at your sentencing factors. They're going to look at what kind of crime you did. They're going to look at what kind of programs you might be eligible for. Do you have substance abuse outlined in your pre-sentence report? Is your substance abuse within a right amount of time, within 12 months prior to the instant offense of the arrest? They're going to take all of these factors into place that are going to determine where you are to be placed. The judge's recommendation does carry some influence, but only in the aspect of getting the decision makers to look and see, is this a prison that's suitable for you? But I've seen several occasions where somebody has been recommended to a specific prison and they end up going somewhere else, and they've got it in their mind that they're going here. So Lori Loughlin, got ran across the tracks on this one, saying that she used her privilege and her influence and her celebrityship to get to a prison that she wanted to go to. Do you know what she did correctly? She hired a prison consultant. And a prison consultant was able to assess the situation, look at the prisons that she was likely to go to, and then based on those prisons, make an educated recommendation to the attorney for the attorney to make a recommendation to the court. Or I'm sorry, for the attorney to ask the court to make a recommendation. That's all it was. And you can see it in the judgment. That's black and white. That is public information. That is not some document that I photoshopped up, that I created myself. I would say the majority of our clients, when we help them with a recommendation to the prison that they of their choice that they would like to go to, as long as they're being mindful and they're looking at the actual prisons that they can qualify for, I would say 90% of the time you're going to go to the prison that's recommended, but that's also probably a prison that's well within the realm of possibilities, within the traveling distance, the 500-mile radius, programming guidelines. You'll see times where individuals will have asked for recommendations of prisons they don't qualify for. Maybe these are individuals that are their points or for a camp. They have their custody level says camp all day long, but they're recommending a low because they've heard maybe this low has some really good programs, or vice versa. You have somebody that doesn't qualify for a camp. Maybe there's some open charges or their custody level, their points are too high, but yet they're making recommendations. Their attorneys making recommendations for them to go to a camp. I've even had attorneys make recommendations for men be recommended to go to federal or a Coleman federal prison camp. And anybody that understands the dynamics of the federal prison system knows that Coleman has a camp for women. Coleman has a camp, a low, a medium, and 2 penitentiaries. Okay. Every prison there is designated for men except for the camp. The camp is for women only. So men cannot go to the camp. So when you see an attorney make this recommendation it's not because the attorney's a bad attorney or doesn't know I don't want to say doesn't know what he's doing, but he's getting into an area that he doesn't normally process in. Most attorneys, from the time that you're sentenced, they're kind of done from that point. At sentencing, they're done with you. There's not much more for them to do. They're now outside of their wheelhouse. And when you tell attorneys that, I've hired a prison consultant. Well, what'd you hire this guy for? He's doing this, this, and this. Some attorneys, instead of just going, hey, let's see what this guy can do for you, and let's kind of put our heads together, let's get a roundtable going on, let's see how we can benefit the best interests of the defendant. Sometimes ego might get in the way in their mind, and they're completely fair because there are a lot of shady individuals out there that claim to do things that they can't do based on fear. But attorneys are just going to assume that, you hired some ex-felon to give you advice and it's probably going to be bad advice. So I'm just going to give you advice instead. And I'm going to dive into an area that I've never really swam into before. We see this happen quite often to where the client's like, well, my attorney said they're going to help me with the letters, or they're going to help me with my narrative, or help me with my reference letters, or they're going to prep me for RDAP. Meanwhile, none of this was ever brought up to the defendant until the defendant started talking to us. And then the defendant goes back and starts asking some educated questions to their criminal defendant attorney. And now late in the game, the attorney's going, oh yeah, we're going to take care of all of that. Well, you're asking your attorney to now help you with something that they've never really, I'm not going to say all attorneys, but the common attorney has not dealt with the consulting side of the issues of what goes on in between all of these gears that the attorney is really focused on. Attorneys should be focused on your plea deal, going through your discovery, making sure that you understand, what rights you're giving up if you're going to take a plea, what your sentencing guidelines are, the reality of going to prison versus probation. These are the areas that your attorney should really that's where their strength is, hopefully, and that's what you're either paying for or your appointed attorney. That's the areas that they're mostly going to be strong in. When you start seeing them get frustrated and start scrambling and giving you advice in all these other areas, this is what experts are hired for. We are sentencing mitigation experts. Am I also a convicted federal criminal that has gone to federal prison and done my time? Yes. But does that mean that I'm going to give you criminal-minded advice that's going to get you in additional trouble? No. So we shouldn't jump to conclusions. Everybody, your attorney will tell you, do your time and you can start your life over fresh and be anybody you want to do. But the minute you tell them you hired somebody that went through this process, like, oh, you're hiring an ex-con. So is that what they really think of who you're going to be in the future? Or are they just mad that you might be hiring somebody else and they're not getting every penny, and some of your pennies might be going somewhere else? Because in reality, we are talking about pennies. When you're talking about the money that's spent on a criminal defense attorney, especially in the federal sector, versus what may be spent with a federal prison consultant, prison consultant fees can range anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000. And a criminal defense attorney, if you're hiring one, I don't even think you can find one for under $10,000. And if you do, you might want to be careful of that also. Let's read what the prophet got here. All due respect, Dan, it's clear that the media is at fault and really the ones who should be dragged over the coals. I mean, that's what the media does, right? The media is out there to build a narrative, to get you to watch, to listen. They can't always just go with exact facts. But they definitely spun this Lori Loughlin stuff. Flat out spun it. We're going to do another story probably next week. Should Lori Loughlin be able to get work? Of course she should. She's done her time. She was sentenced to 2 months. You can say it's fair, unfair, but that's something you need to go take up with the courts. You can't put that on her and say that she should never. I mean, look at Martha Stewart. Martha Stewart went and did her, 5 months or something like that, and I think she's worth $640 million now. She's built an empire after prison. We can't, if you're going to constantly define somebody by the mistakes that they made, then you're no better than the next person. And maybe many of us are just mad because they had all this money and they still made these mistakes. But the college admin scandal, for centuries, this is how it's been done. These high-end profile, whether it be celebrities or just high-end profile individuals, have paid a fee and their kids go to these schools. Does it make it right? No. Is it something that should have been stopped? Yes. But it's also a way that it's always been done. And this came under media fire as well. So they had to find scapegoats on this and make some examples out of individuals. But I can guarantee you, probably the judges that are prosecutors and judges involved on this case, they've probably done similar things at some point in their life as well. So hopefully we can move past that and people can give these individuals their life back and let them do their time, and they've got their conviction now, but let them go out and make a living. We can't sit here and condemn somebody forever because of some poor choices they made, because that's exactly what you and I are going through this very moment. There's links in the description of this video, guys, if you want to book a consultation and find out how we might be able to best put you in a situation to receive the best possible outcome. I definitely suggest that you use the link. Let me see if I can grab it here for you guys. With all this new technology here, I got to go find it. And let's see here. Here it is. And I'll drop this in the live chat as well. There you go. Book your free consultation. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up, as our hype man Coyote would tell you. I'm just reading some of these, see if I missed any messages here. BB says, regardless of whether you can pick your prison or not, money makes things easier. Sure, it does. Of course, money is going to make everything easier. You're not going to worry as much. You're not going to have to worry about what you're coming home to. But just because she has money doesn't mean she should get a harsher sentence. People think Victorville, where she was sentenced to, that it's some kind of a cushy white collar prison. Victorville is the same place that any nonviolent offender would go. First time nonviolent female offender that lives in that general area that's sentenced to a rather short sentence, under 10 years. That's the same type of prison that they would go to as well. It could be, a drug crime. You could have gone to prison for selling marijuana or cocaine. And if your sentence was under a certain amount of time and there was no violence and no guns, and you don't have a lengthy rap sheet, that's where you would go. So it wasn't like Lori Loughlin was in some, hotel room where she had her private room where nobody was bothering her. I'm sure other inmates treated her like a celebrity in there, and she probably was treated differently by staff, but she was in the same common area as everybody else. She ate the same food as everybody else. Now she has money from the outside, so maybe inmates were, sneaking her other food in from the chow hall, or they were sneaking her food that the correctional officers would eat. But I used to see the same thing going on at Coleman Low. I would see guys that work in the kitchen come out with, steak and lobster on certain times, certain holidays when they would do like staff appreciation meals. These meals would trickle down back to the inmates that were in a position to have access to it. So I'm sure if there was inmates that had access to it, they were probably bringing it back to Lori. But this is what the inmates do. They all probably are thinking, oh, I'm going to become friends with Lori Loughlin, and when I get out, she's going to remember me and she's going to write a script for me. Who knows what these individuals were thinking? But I can tell you, she went through the same treatment that most of you are going to go through that are going to go to a similar prison. The big difference is when you're going from that type of a lifestyle of like a Lori Loughlin or a Martha Stewart, and you go into a prison setting, no matter what, it's such a setback from what you're accustomed to that you're probably going to see it as a horrible situation. I haven't personally heard how Lori Loughlin has described her prison situation as of yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if she doesn't say it was the worst experience of her life. You know, her experiences versus my experiences in life are night and day, but that doesn't change the situation of that's just in her mind how she assessed it, but she still dealt with the same thing that you and I are going to deal with. So yeah, that's all we got on today's video guide. But, you know, many of you are really concerned about your sentence, and getting into RDAP right now is a nightmare. For those of you that are getting ready to self-surrender soon, and you've got RDAP in you think it's in the bag because you have your substance abuse is all documented in the pre-sentence report, you may want to give me a call because RDAP is not a done deal right now. Many locations have RDAP on pause. They have RDAP that's shutting down. They're running RDAP on a very, very minimal type of a schedule because of COVID. So we're seeing, we have a client right now who was sentenced to exactly 24 months. And he was pretty like, hey, this is not a bad deal. I'm getting ready to go in and get RDAP. And now he's finding out that RDAP may not even be running at the location that he's thinking he's going to go to. He hasn't received his official designation yet. We're waiting for that. But once he gets his designation, then we can jump in and do our job and find out when RDAP is starting. And if we know the start date, we can then go back to the sentencing judge and we can try to ask for a change in your self-surrender date to align these up so you can go into RDAP or go into the prison before RDAP starts, but not too soon before it starts. Because for those of you that don't know, just because you were given a 24-month sentence, as you know, that's the minimum amount of time required to get into the program. If you get to prison on a 24-month sentence, but RDAP doesn't start for 2 months or 3 months, now you're not going to have enough time left on your sentence because now you've got way less than 24 months and you won't have the ability to take RDAP. So timing it right to where you go in 2 or 3 weeks before the program starts, that can be a huge key to not only getting the help that you need, but also getting the potential sentence reduction portion of the program as well. And these are all things that we can factor in, help you mitigate to create a possibility for that to happen for you. It's really sad when you see this happen to somebody that thought they had it all figured out, and then they get there and then, you know, the rug's ripped out from underneath them because there's these moving parts that they weren't aware of. So definitely, guys, do your homework, do your due diligence, take your attorney's advice for sure, but you also have to do your own thinking. You have to do what's best for yourself. And sometimes the best thing you can do is pick up your phone and call RDAP Dan. Don't forget to text the word YouTube to 76626. That will put you on our notification text message list. So you get live notifications by text message when we're getting ready to go live. It has nothing to do with YouTube. It's a separate service. Also turn on your little notifications, your icons, all that good stuff. Make sure you subscribe, like, and if you have any questions, leave a comment. If there's any topics you would like us to talk about, we've got some really cool interviews coming up. If you guys probably saw the interviews that we just recently did, I did one with my buddy Bill, who was in prison. I did one with a client of ours, Stuart Anderson, who actually hired another prison consultant and wasn't happy with the services, then came to us, and we've been able to make quite a bit of headway with him. We've actually had that happen a lot lately. There's a lot of consultants out there really trying to take advantage of this COVID-19 stuff, where we actually had a client that was like, hey, I like everything you got to say, but we're going to go with this other company. They were trying to get compassionate release, and they were like, yeah, this other company is pretty certain they can get me compassionate release before I ever get to prison. Now, is it possible? Yes, but you have to exhaust your BOP remedies first. And this company was telling them, well, no, you don't have to exhaust your BOP remedies. We can bypass that because it's been done before. So they're telling this to the client, and the client finally tells me that this is the reason why they hired the other company. So I was like, well, what are they telling you? Like, is there a case that they're referring to? So they gave him a case that this happened to. So now the client didn't know how to go in and look up the case on like Pacer and see, you know, apples and apples, or is this apples to oranges? So looking up the case, this guy had been sentenced to 27 months. He was in the entire time, basically in county, hasn't been designated yet, had served 20 months of his 27 months, not in BOP custody though. He was still like waiting in marshal custody, or he was in county waiting to get designated. Contracted COVID. His attorneys were not, he wasn't able to go through and exhaust his BOP remedies because he didn't have a prison that he was ever designated to, or at least didn't know what it was yet. So his attorneys went back to the court and said, hey, we would exhaust the remedies, but we can't. He's got COVID. I believe the guy was like in his 70s. We're trying to bypass this and have the court grant him compassionate release and go finish his time on home confinement. Well, ultimately it gets granted. The guy goes home. So this is the case that these other prison consultants are using as, oh, you can bypass being designated. So now you've got people that haven't served a minute in prison yet that are out, healthy, waiting to get designated. And this is what these consultants are using as a case study, but without giving you all the details. They're not really saying, well, the guy did serve 20 months of a 27-month sentence, just not at the actual BOP prison. He was still in county jail waiting to get designated, but that's all time served. That time counts. There's no way the average individual is going to qualify for this. It's just not going to happen. And when you try to say that my client hasn't been designated yet, the court's going to come back and say, yeah, idiot, he's going to be designated any day now, because that's how this works. When you get sentenced, your paperwork goes to Grand Prairie, and then Grand Prairie designates you. So any consultant out there, and you know who you are, you know damn well who you are, doing that to individuals is very, very sneaky, and it's going to get you a bad rap. And the problem is the consultant company that did this has got a great reputation, but they've hired a sales guy that did some prison time. And the sales guy is after sales commission. So he's telling them part of it. It's like if anybody's ever worked in sales or a call center, you got your sales guys on the phones doing their job, trying to bring in money. And sometimes they tell you the benefits, but they forget to tell you the other side. Like they make it all sound perfect. And you get that impulse buy where shortly after buyer's remorse will follow. Well, you shouldn't have to sell on hype if you can't tell somebody everything. I guarantee you, if they would have said, look, here's a motion where a guy got approved without being designated technically. However, he had 20 months served. He was also like 70 years old, and he was in a county jail in a horrible environment with COVID. These things were so far apart that when I showed this to the client, I sent it to him. I said, look, just look at this for yourself. And was this explained to you? And if not, you should be alarmed right now, because if this is the type of service you're getting in order to get you in the door, what kind of service are you going to get down the road? I think the client ended up getting some kind of a partial refund, but it's scary to me that people will use these types of tactics just to get a sale in order to beat somebody else, in order to, we don't want RDAP Dan to get them, so this is what we're going to tell them. You shouldn't have to lie to your clients to get them. If you can use facts and you can use your education and you can use what you've been through, you can help people. And if you're really doing it for the right reasons and you want to put somebody in a better situation, you wouldn't be doing that. That's what I got to say. Look, we all going through this. We're all scared. We're all terrified of the unknown. We all want to do anything to not go to prison. And sometimes people smell that blood in the water. And when you smell the blood in the water, you get all these sharks that start circling you, sniffing the blood, and everybody's going to start trying to take a bite out of you. And at the end of the day, you don't know who you can trust. And sometimes you make no decision. Instead of doing the right thing, you don't do the right thing. You don't do the wrong thing. You just stay there stagnant and do absolutely nothing to better your situation. So due diligence, homework, do your research. If somebody tells you, oh, it happened, ask them for some cases. Say, hey, how can I look these cases up? Or get yourself a Pacer account. Pacer is free. You only pay for the stuff that you download, and it's minimal. I mean, I use Pacer on a daily basis, and I think my Pacer bill comes to like maybe $300 a month. But, we also have like 300 active clients where we're constantly looking at stuff on Pacer. For yourself, you're probably looking at $30, $40 a month in Pacer if you're looking at it every single day. But you can see things like what motions have been filed, waiting on responses from the judges. You can see when a judge responds. If you're trying to get an extension for self-surrender, you can see all of this once it goes into Pacer. So you can manage and monitor your own case. And it's the same thing that most criminal defendants are going to be using to check on filing statuses anyway. So it's a good thing to have. If you're early on in your case, I suggest getting a Pacer account. Maybe you're interested in what's going on with your co-defendants. and you don't want to keep picking up the phone to call your attorney because it's bugging him and maybe he doesn't want to take the time to look it up, you can go look up. It's all public information for the most part. There will be some stuff that is that you're not able to see, like pre-sentence reports or maybe medical records or some sealed files. But for the most part, you'll be able to see different entries as the case progresses through PACER. So it's a great way to maintain and manage and get an idea of what you're looking at by looking at other cases similar to yours. We've done some tutorials on PACER. Maybe we'll do another one. If there's something you guys would like to see, leave a comment down below. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I got. I'm going to go have dinner now. Don't forget to subscribe, share, like this stuff. 509-434-4695. Text the word YouTube 76627. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm RDAP Dan, Federal Prison Time Consulting. People up in people, communities method, one day at a time. Everybody stay safe, and I'll see you soon. Peace. Love you guys.